And he realizes that because of that life that he chose, that there was no meaning in it. And because of that, there he was now, at 60 years old or so, hands in his face, crying out, "I've wasted my life. I've wasted my life." If you haven't heard a person who's old and has nothing of the hourglass left to look at, I mean, that's just a wretched sound to make. You know? And so this was a guy who chose every day to say, it's just Monday. It's just Tuesday. It's just second period. It's just a weekend. It's just a wedding. It's just a birthday party. And so the end of his life was just a waste. It was just a waste. Your ability to find meaning and to find purpose in the things that you're doing, even things that seem like they might be meaningless, is going to be directly related to your ability at the end to say, wow, that's my life. I'll watch that again. Or to be sitting there in your deathbed maybe saying, that was life, just that, I've wasted my life. There's actually a lot of research behind it. There's a lot of science behind what creates an optimist and what creates a pessimist. And so, this quote's really hard, by the way. The reason it's difficult is because it's, again, when I give you guys these quotes, keep in mind that I'm giving you like one sentence. I read this guy's book. That's where I get the quotes from. Anything that goes up there, unless it comes from one of you guys, which I think I mentioned to you before, if there's a quote you like, let me know. There was one that we did with the 12th graders today that one of my students gave me. I wasn't sure there'd be much to talk about, but all my 12th grade classes really liked it. And it's a really dark quote too. So if there's something that you guys want to talk about or a quote that strikes you particularly, let me know. I have no problem incorporating it and putting it in. But all these quotes, they come from a book I've read or an essay that I've read. So all you're getting is like that one sentence. And so making meaning of that one sentence can be really difficult because you only have a very narrow context, if that makes sense. It's kind of like making meaning of life, actually. You only have that narrow context. And so is your life meaningful or not? You could look at this quote and go, meaningless, and walk away from it. Some of you could read this, and I promise you, you'd have the ability to take what's being said here and write an entire book or two off of it. How deep is it? You know, you hear it all the time, right? It's not that deep. To shallow people. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that to just people who are not deep people. But to a deep person, everything is that deep. Every idea is that interesting. Every interaction is that pregnant with meaning. And so if you find meaning, like what is it that makes up a meaningful life? Well, to find meaning in the things of life. Is there meaning in your chemistry class? You tell me. I mean, there is, of course, because we all like, food and all these things are made with chemistry. But is there meaning to you? And if we shut off our eyes and our ears and just say, it's meaningless to me, okay. And how about your English class? Meaningless to me. How about your math class? Meaningless to me. How about your history class? Meaningless to me. I think I see a pattern. And I think the message that we're sending ourselves is that therefore school is meaningless. How could it be meaningful if you've got, 6 classes and 4 or 5 of your 6 classes are meaningless? It'd be very difficult at that point to say, but it still has meaning. And you can think of that as like a microcosm for your life. Think of it this way. I might have told you this story before. When I was a first year teacher, I was a traveling teacher, which means you don't stay in one classroom. You have 6 different classrooms for 6 different classes. And there was a teacher whose classroom I was in my 6th period classes, and they were all 10th grade classes. I was telling her, I'm having a lot of trouble with my 1st period class. I can't seem to get things going. There's blah, 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 blah. And so she says, and that's how she talks. She goes, oh, Steve, it's 1st period. It's early in the morning. They're not awake yet. They don't actually wake up until 9 or so. So 1st period is kind of a wash. It's kind of a waste of time. Okay, so there's nothing I can do? No. All right. And then later on in the year, she was I was in her room 6th period, and I was telling her, God, I can't 6th period. It's a challenge, man, to get everybody on the page. And she says, well, it's the end of the day. It's after lunch. They're squirrely. They're ready to go home. So you really can't do much 6th period. Okay. And then later on this semester, I was telling her I was struggling with my 3rd period class, and she was telling me it's after nutrition, it's before lunch. They're squirrely. They want to go eat something, go see their friends. So you really can't do much during 3rd period. You follow? So when during the day can you do anything? Can't do anything 1st, 3rd, or 5th. Can't do anything 2nd, 4th, or 6th, which means you could never do anything as far as this teacher was concerned. And her teaching practices demonstrated that. She taught 9th grade classes at the time and 12th grade classes, and she gave them both the exact same assignments. She wouldn't differentiate it at all. She would give the 12th graders 9th grade work. And her thing was, well, they can see it again. It's not a big deal. It's just 12th grade. It's just 12th grade. It's just 2nd period. You guys notice that Monday is kind of slow, it's a wash. You say, it's Monday, And then Friday we're ready to go home. So we really can't do anything on Monday. We really can't do anything Friday. And if you think about Thursday, we're really getting geared up for Monday. I'm sorry, we're getting geared up for Friday. And then Wednesday, middle of the week, we're kind of slumping, So if you really think about it, Monday through Friday is a wash also. And then that means that, January is a wash. And then that's February as well, March, April, May, every period of the day. There are only so many times that you can use the word just in your life and not realize that you just wasted your life. I don't know any other way of saying that. What's meaningful in life is what you make meaningful. If you're able to look at Monday, Monday 1st period and say, it's meaningful, and you can find a way to make it meaningful, then now 1st period is meaningful. Now 3rd period is meaningful. 5th period is meaningful. And at the end of the day, you go home and you're like, wow, I've had a meaningful day. Was it meaningful? If you made it so. Even the most meaningful thing in the world is meaningless to a person who lets it skip by them. There's only so many days that you can let go through. I'll tell you guys the story. After I graduated from college, I was on a road trip with a couple of friends of mine. One of them is actually a professor over at UCSD right now, teaches philosophy. And we're in this convertible going through going towards New Mexico, and not too fast, but not too slow either, just a good speed. And we stopped in this little town, and it was the kind of town that only had a couple thousand people who lived there. Most of the people, it seemed like they had been born there, they're raised there, and they're probably going to die there. Not many people leave there. There was some kind of factory or mill in the city that most of the people worked at. And so we stopped by this pub. It's like a public house. It's like, restaurant, bar, pool house, where people are just going to gather every night to socialize. As we go in the front door, I'm at the bar and I'm ordering some food. And I hear one of the most wretched sounds that I've ever heard in my life. I mean, it gives me chills thinking about it. And it was a man's voice, and he was crying. And all I could hear him blubbering through was, I wasted my life. I wasted my life. And I look over to the side, it's like the pool area, and there's this old man, and he had his hands in his face like this, and he was just repeating that phrase, I wasted my life. I wasted my life. And he was surrounded by friends of his who were talking to him and hugging him and everything. And I was just, I don't know, I was curious, what causes a person to cry like this? And so as the night went on, I eventually was able to talk to some of the people, and I got the story. And the story was this: just like I had thought, they all kind of grew up together. Everybody who lived in that town, they went to school together, worked together. But this was a guy who was particularly misanthropic, which means he didn't seem to like people very much. And so all through high school, he had friends, but he was mostly kind of like a loner. And then, just like the rest of them, when he graduated, he got a job at this factory. And for the last, I think they said it was 45 years, which would put him at 60 years old. He'd worked at this factory, and they'd been inviting him out to their picnics and family events and all that, and he never did. He was just very antisocial. His whole life consisted of wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch television. And then Tuesday, wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch television. Wednesday, wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch television. The weekends were different. You just took out the go to work part. Everything else was the same. And he had lived like this for decades. And there was something about it that this one night, for some reason, and that was the night that we were going through there, he decided to go out and just see the public, go see where everybody was hanging out. And it turns out there was just something in him that just said, I'm gonna go see what these people have been doing their whole lives, because they were inviting him to their weddings. They were inviting them to their baptisms. They were inviting him to, even to the funerals of the friends who had died. And he just never went out to do any of these things. And so the night that I encountered him, he was sitting over in this pool hall. He had finally come out. And apparently when he walked in, they all just exploded like, oh, hey, like surprised to see him, but excited, as though no time had passed, apparently, as though all of those decades hadn't separated high school and that night. And he goes in and he starts talking to some of the people, and they're totally excited that he's there. He's finding out about their kids and about what they've been doing, and he realizes that because of that life that he chose, that there was no meaning in it. And because of that, there he was now, at 60 years old or so, hands in his face, crying out, I've wasted my life. I've wasted my life. And if you haven't heard a person who's old and has nothing of the hourglass left to look at, I mean, that's just a wretched sound to make. And so this was a guy who chose every day to say, it's just Monday. It's just Tuesday. It's just second period. It's just a weekend. It's just a wedding. It's just a birthday party. And so the end of his life was just a waste. It was just a waste. And all these people who had built up their lives with people around them and doing the things that, maybe not even necessarily doing the job that they loved, but filling up their life with the people who they loved and doing some of the things that they loved. They were able to find meaning and purpose in a life. And so this guy had come to that point of realizing that that was just not the thing. And so your ability to find meaning and to find purpose in the things that you're doing, even things that seem like they might be meaningless, is going to be directly related to your ability at the end to say, wow, that's my life. I'm going to watch that again. Or to be sitting there in your deathbed maybe saying, that was life, I've wasted my life. So I guess the first part of all that is to find a way to not waste today and to not waste tomorrow. Then don't waste the week, then don't waste the month. And the less time that you've wasted, the more time that you've made something meaningful out of, perhaps maybe at that point, at the end of all of it, we can look back and say, man, what a meaningful life. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Wednesday.